Have you ever noticed how some women seem to handle crisis like it's a Tuesday afternoon? Someone's house floods, a family member gets sick, a relationship implodes, and there's this particular type of woman who just shows up. She organizes the chaos, she makes the calls, she holds it together while everyone else falls apart. And if you've ever been that woman, you know something strange happens afterward. When it's finally over and people say, "I don't know how you did it," there's this split second where you think, "I don't either," because it didn't feel like strength. It felt automatic. Here's what nobody talks about. That ability to function through disaster? It wasn't built from confidence. It was built from necessity. And the psychology behind why certain women can operate this way, without flinching, without hesitation, is rarely discussed the way it should be. If you recognize yourself in that description, the cultural narrative would have you believe you're either exceptionally strong or deeply damaged. One tells you to be grateful for your resilience. The other suggests you're too hardened, too closed off, maybe even emotionally unavailable. Both are wrong. What psychology actually shows is that women who have gone through too much didn't choose to become capable under pressure. They adapted. The nervous system doesn't ask for permission to protect you. When a child grows up in instability, when a teenager has to manage adult responsibilities, when a young woman learns that crisis is inevitable and help is not, the brain does what it's designed to do. It recalibrates what safety means. And somewhere along the way, the body stops waiting for things to get easier. It just learns how to survive them. This isn't about strength or damage. It's about conditioning. And the cost of that conditioning doesn't show up where people expect. Here's how it works. The human stress response system is designed to activate in short bursts. Threat appears, cortisol spikes, the body mobilizes, the threat passes, the system returns to baseline. That's the textbook version. But when stress becomes chronic, especially in childhood or adolescence, the brain doesn't get to return to baseline. It floats somewhere between vigilance and function, never fully relaxed, never fully in crisis. What researchers in trauma and stress adaptation call allostatic load starts to build. That's the cumulative wear on the body and mind from constantly adapting to stress. For women who grew up too fast or who spent years managing unpredictable environments, the nervous system essentially learns a new normal. It becomes efficient at suppressing panic, at compartmentalizing emotion, at moving through logistical problems without falling apart. In attachment research, this often shows up as what's called compulsive self-reliance. The person doesn't just prefer to handle things alone. They genuinely cannot imagine that someone else will follow through. So they don't wait. They don't ask. They just do. And here's the part that rewrites the story most people tell themselves. This wasn't about becoming strong. It was about survival math. If chaos is constant and support is inconsistent, the brain makes a calculation. Depending on yourself is statistically safer than depending on others. That's not a personality flaw. That's pattern recognition. But the adaptation comes with a cost that most people don't recognize. Because the same system that allows someone to stay calm in a crisis also makes it very hard to rest when there isn't one. The body becomes so used to operating in survival mode that stillness starts to feel like a threat. When there's nothing to fix, nothing to manage, nothing to solve, the nervous system doesn't know what to do. That's why women who have been through too much often report feeling more anxious during peaceful moments than stressful ones. The brain is waiting for the other shoe to drop because historically, it always has. If this describes your experience, it says something specific about the kind of person you've become. Not better, not broken, just shaped by a particular set of conditions. You're probably the person people call when things go wrong. Not because you're the warmest or the most emotionally available, but because people know you won't freeze. They know you'll figure it out. And that role didn't come from wanting to be needed. It came from learning early that if you didn't handle it, no one would. So competence became reflexive. Solving problems became safer than expressing needs. And over time, the version of you that other people see, the one who's always fine, always capable, started to feel more real than the version that isn't. What often goes unnoticed is how much energy it takes to maintain that. Because underneath the composure is a system running on fumes. Women who've gone through too much are frequently the ones managing everyone else's emotional regulation, while never quite managing their own. They can hold space for other people's breakdowns. They can't always access their own. And that's not because they're strong. It's because they learned that their feelings were an inconvenience in environments where survival required efficiency. The identity that forms around this isn't cold. It's protective. But protection, over time, can start to feel like isolation. Here's where it gets complicated, because the traits that come from going through too much aren't inherently good or bad. They're contextual. Being able to stay calm under pressure, that's adaptive in real emergencies. It's how you help people. It's how you navigate genuine crises without making them worse. The problem is when the nervous system can't tell the difference between a real crisis and a normal Tuesday. When every decision feels high stakes, when rest feels like negligence, when asking for help feels more dangerous than exhaustion. The line between self-reliance and self-erasure is thinner than most people realize. At some point, the question stops being, "Can I handle this alone?" and becomes, "Do I even know how to let someone else in?" And that's not about trust in the abstract. It's about whether the body believes, on a physiological level, that someone else showing up is even possible. So the real question isn't whether you're too self-sufficient or too guarded. It's whether the patterns that kept you safe in the past are still serving you now, or whether they're just running on autopilot, protecting you from threats that no longer exist. Understanding this doesn't mean fixing it. It means recognizing how your nervous system was shaped and what it's still trying to do. Awareness, in this context, looks like noticing when you're in overdrive without an actual emergency. It's recognizing the difference between, "I need to handle this," and "I'm the only one who can handle this." It's catching the moment when rest starts to feel like irresponsibility and asking, "Is that true? Or is that just what my body learned?" This isn't about forcing yourself to relax or retraining your brain through willpower. It's about understanding that the version of you that moves through crisis without hesitation was built for a reason. And that version doesn't need to be dismantled. But it also doesn't need to be in charge all the time. The shift happens when you stop treating your own patterns as a problem to solve and start treating them as information. Your body isn't wrong for being on alert. It's doing what it was trained to do. The question is whether you want to keep running that program or whether there's room now for something different. And that's not a decision you make once. It's a negotiation. With your nervous system, with your history, with the version of yourself that learned, a long time ago, that the only person you could count on was you. If this landed, it's because you've lived it. And if you've lived it, you already know you're not damaged. You're adapted. The question isn't whether you're too much or not enough. It's whether the strategies that kept you alive are still the ones you want to live by. If you want more conversations like this, one that don't try to fix you but help you understand yourself, subscribe. There's more to unpack here.